With more than 200,000 layoffs over the past 2 years in the tech industry and even across other industries, the issue with mental health of those impacted employees and even the non-impacted ones is definitely concerning. As I was going through social media posts and articles, I realized that there's a lot of help available, but mostly from the perspective of HR managers and business leaders who are probably part of the problem. And that's when I decided to reach out to someone who is part of the solution. Today, in this podcast, we are going to talk with Dr. Sandeep Atre, whom I have known for past 20 years. Dr. Sandeep Atre is a counseling psychologist and an internationally recognized emotional and social intelligence expert. He's the founder of Socialigence, a venture specializing in development of social and emotional intelligence through its e-learning course rooted in neuroscience and psychology. He's also co-founder of CH Edgemakers, a leading coaching group of India. He's author of two books related to his domain, namely Understanding Emotions Logically and Observing Nonverbal Behavior. His third book on various aspects of life is named Two Paras of Everyday Wisdom. The collection of his nazms and ghazals is published as a book titled Baat Jazbaat Ki. In his career of more than 2 decades, he has trained professionals of more than 50 companies and thousands of individuals to sort out and excel in intrapersonal and interpersonal matters. So let's start our podcast talking to Dr. Sandeep Atre. Hello, sir. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Mratul. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you. So, sir, as you have heard, layoffs are very common in these days, and we have seen this across the industries and across different age groups. So, no matter it's Gen Z, millennials, baby boomers, whatever generation you call. And just for the start, let's talk first about mental health, and then we'll talk about emotional intelligence, how emotional intelligence can play a part over handling the mental health. So, from your perspective, I wanted to start and understand, as a psychologist who talks to so many people, what do you think is the impact of layoffs on mental health of employees and maybe even their family?
Mratul, talking first about employees, there's this really relevant anecdote that I just got reminded of while you were talking about layoffs. And it was related to probably Stanford. At least in the trainers circles, it is considered that it happened at Stanford. Put any Ivy League name there, and it'll still hold true. So the anecdote goes like this: that there is a B school class going on, and the class is on strategic management. And professor asks a question on the case that was already given to all the students a day before, and then professor asks this question. He says, "Okay, so tell me about the possible solutions." Because the company is going through a lot of struggle in terms of maintaining a break even. So there's a boy towards the back bench, and he kind of raises his hand half, and he says, "Well, I think Professor, layoff would be a very, very good option here. I think cost-cutting measures and layoffs." There is a silence. The expression on the face of professor changes, and then he says, get up and come here." The boy comes there. He's a little tentative, and then professor, with almost red face, looks at that student and says, "You buffoon, you clown, you jester, you scoundrel, you worthless piece of shit, just get the hell out of this place first. I just do not want to see your bloody face." The boy is absolutely aghast, and while he's tentatively walking towards the door, professor asks him to wait. He says, "Wait." And then he says, "How did it feel?" He said, "Insulted." Professor said, "My boy, that's exactly how it feels when you lay off somebody." The student takes a pause, looks at the professor and says, "I think there can be a better option than layoff. Can I get back to the case?" And he says, "Yeah, please go back to the case and choose a better option rather than laying people off." I genuinely think that this story kind of encapsulates how a person who is being laid off or who got laid off feels. He or she feels insulted. He or she feels deserted. He or she feels, it's not about worklessness. He or she feels worthlessness. Suddenly, the entire focus of his or her adult life, which has been work, it is taken away from him or her. So the first feeling that he or she gets is a sense of worthlessness, and that can really wreak havoc in mind of that person. Now here, there's another point that one needs to understand, that employee who was fired also feels as if he or she is not good enough. It is almost like a professional breakup. And how do you feel after personal breakup? You feel, you start questioning everything that happened. You start questioning everything you stood for. You start questioning everything that you believed in. And that's precisely how an employee feels, a sense of worthlessness. So that's what messes it up.
Makes sense. In fact, I'll just add to it that, well, when it comes to layoff, I think it's a step more than, maybe a breakup or a divorce, just for the very reason that it happens so suddenly that you don't really have time to even get used to it.
Very true.
And you
Very
start
true.
dealing with it after, rather than, in breakup and probably divorce and other separations in general.
Very
There's
true.
some ramp up time, right?
I
So
think when you said it, I suddenly realized a better word would be betrayal rather than breakup.
makes sense. Makes sense.